هل ما زلت مصرا على رأيك في مسألة تكفير علماء الشيعة ولا تراجعت؟
أقول لك تبي الحق ولا ابن عمه؟ أبغى الحق إني كنت إلى فترة قريبة
تكفرهم؟
نعم.
تكفر علماء الشيعة؟
علماء الشيعة. إنما العموم على العموم، كل من قال لا إله إلا الله، من أكل ذبيحتنا، من استقبل قبلتنا وأكل ذبيحتنا فهو المسلم.
What you just heard is the Sheikh, the Imam of Makkah, appointed by the Saudi government, stating that the Shia used to be kafir or outside the fold of Islam, but now they've become Muslim. They're no longer outside the fold of Islam. So basically what he said is that it is God's will that they are now Muslim, and previously it was God's will that they weren't Muslim. So God's will changed. But of course God's will didn't change. The Sheikh's will changed. So the Sheikh is confusing himself with God. There's no other reasoning. There's no other logic of explaining it. That is giving himself the job of God to decide who's Muslim and who's not Muslim. Do you want to see more examples of the Salafis and the priests making a mockery of the beautiful deen that we have, our beautiful Islam, our beautiful Qur'an? Do you want to see more mockery? And then the Muslims continue to follow them. Take a look at this one.
By anybody in Islamic history. Tell me one person, this is a challenge. Tell me, I would like to know for my own growth, and please, honestly, tell me one person in Islamic history who has said exactly what Al-Albani is saying, which is to say that the reason why you can suck from the teat directly, from the nipple directly, is because it is gloomy, yes, and black. He said.
So what Muhammad Hijab is arguing against here is the Salafi viewpoint that is based in a hadith, I think in Tirmidhi, that states that a grown man can suck the nipple of a grown woman in order for that woman to become his foster mother, which has practical benefits because then he can be in seclusion with this woman. So that's obviously a false hadith, and but authenticated by the priests. And what Muhammad Hijab is doing is he's being embarrassed about this fatwa because he's actually quoting the fatwa of one of the great priests of the Salafis, Albani. And Albani states that you can actually, a grown man can go and suck on the nipple of a strange woman, but because the nipple is dark, and they have a detailed exploration of this nonsense, and this is the mockery that they're making of the deen. Because why? They refuse to think. They export, or they subcontract all thinking to dead people, to people who lived 1,000 years ago. They've outsourced their thinking to dead people. They've outsourced their thinking to books, and books can't think. And that is the problem we sit with. But the only problem also is the stupidity wouldn't be a problem if they didn't couple that with religious arrogance and with violence and an oppressive means of spreading the ideas to match with that. And that is really the problem we sit with. If you ask any Muslim person what is the most sacred, central, pivotal position of Aqidah that they must embrace or adopt to even think of being a Muslim, then they will tell you it is the idea of Tawheed. It is the idea that God is one, inseparable, alone in His majesty, in His Godhood, in His sovereignty, in His power, in His majesty and control. That is the most central concept in Islam. And yet, you get the Muslim scholars, the Muslim priesthood, who confuse themselves with God when they say that when you contravene their ideas, their laws, that you are committing a heresy. that you are a heretic when you differ with their laws. So never mind the book of God. No. When they write a book, and they ascribe it to God, when they write a book with their hands, a hadith book, a tafsir book, any book of Aqidah, with their hands, they regard their words as having the authority and the power of God Himself. In other words, they confuse themselves with God. But that is not the biggest crime, because they are committing the primary or the cardinal act of heresy, which is questioning the unique and supreme position of God as the legislator of all that is sacred and divine. They turn their laws, their ideas, into divine laws, and that is their heresy. But the heresy of the common Muslim, close to 2 billion of them today, almost 99% of them, or 95% of them, is to turn the words of their priests into the words of God. So not only do you have pretenders, you have those masses who legitimize those pretenders. And it's a desperate and dire situation, because it is a situation of shirk, what the Qur'an refers to as shirk, ishraku billah, to co-opt with God, co-equals or partners. And that is the sad situation of the Muslims today. What needs to be done is, we need to relieve all those pretenders of their false sense of godness or godliness, and return to the pristine and pure authorized statements revealed directly to us from God. And those we should embrace as the core beliefs or core code that are required, not the million additional laws and rules around halal, haram, and any other conceivable area of life that have been invented by the pretenders who pretend that they are God, or that they share in the power to create sacred or divine law. That is the mission of all liberators, all people who are evaluating and correcting, who is in the business of tasdeeq, to correct and rectify the problem within our community.